Maggie's team who've been working on this event for the last few months, and we're so pleased to see you all here. And a special thanks, although I haven't met her yet, there's a bride here tonight on her hen night. So we haven't found her yet, but she's got all her hens with her, so we wanted to say thank you for doing that for your hen night. We'll be setting off in about half an hour, but we just had a few things to tell you first, and a few people we'd really like you to meet. There'll be a health and safety announcement and a bit of a warm-up. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Lily Jenks.
This wasn't part of the show. We're dressed up tonight as the Frisky Panthers, so to go with my cat here. So I'm Lily Jenks. My mother was Maggie, who is the founder of Maggie Centres. It's very moving to be here tonight and see so many people here to support us. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk a bit about my experience. My mum died 18 years ago from breast cancer, but she had an idea. She wanted everyone who went through cancer to have a place where they understood and were looked after, somewhere where they felt they knew what it was like to have this diagnosis. Obviously, we know the diagnosis of cancer is a horrific experience. Not only is it that, but with the different types of treatments, complementary medicines, and the new drug trials, sometimes it feels like you need to learn a new language in order to communicate and understand your treatment. I'm going to read you a brief note about her experience of those early days of the diagnosis. I know many of you will recognize what she was feeling. So there you are, on a plane, quietly progressing towards a distant destination, when maybe I'll start again. So there you are on a plane, quietly progressing towards a distant destination, when astonishingly, why me? A huge hole opens in the floor next to you. People in white coats appear. They help you into a parachute, and no time to think, out you go. Whoa! If you're lucky, the parachute opens. You descend. You hit the ground. You crawl upright. You're surrounded by a thick fog, through which a crowd of distant, discernible figures call and gesture. Here, this way. But where is the enemy? What is the enemy? Where is it? What is it up to? Is it there, behind the bush, over there? Is it near? Is it in the distant future? And which way is home? There's no road, there's no compass, there's no map. You're not trained for this. Is there something that you should know and you don't know? The white coats by now are far away. They're strapping other people into parachutes. Occasionally they wave, but even if you ask them, they don't know the answers. They're up there in the jumbo, involved with the parachuting. They're not map making. What my mum wanted was a place that would help her with the map making, to navigate the complex territory of cancer care. And that's why Maggie's is here. Thank you so much for being here and making that map a reality for so many people with cancer. It's fantastic to see everyone walking tonight, and everyone has their own special reason for walking. It can be a meditative experience walking, and it can also be a fun and fulfilling one, so I hope that you will feel free to meet each other and learn about the reasons why you're here, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily. And if it wasn't for Maggie, none of us would be doing this walk tonight or celebrating the number of centres we have. We now have 16 centres. We have our 17th centre opening in Aberdeen on Monday, and there are many more centres still to come because everybody needs a Maggie centre. We have no government funding at Maggie's, so everything we do is because of people like you doing such amazing fundraising for us. And we need all these centres to offer the practical, emotional and social support that people with cancer need all over the country. Tonight is all about really celebrating the many things that go on in a Maggie Centre. One of the main things that goes on is a lot of chatting. People come into the centre, meet each other at the kitchen table, and there's an amazing sense of community. And like Lily said, we hope there'll be lots of chatting tonight as you meet each other. There's a lot of creativity in our centres as well, through our art groups and through the way our centres look. One of the things that will be happening on the walk tonight is we hope you'll find the apple trees along the route. There are 4 apple trees, and each of them have been decorated with 200 apples hanging off green thread for you to pick as you go past. And we just want you to enjoy that, and it's something that we can give to you to say thank you. And I know Lily's been seeing some of the apple trees today. We spent the whole of yesterday in the centre threading, how many apples? About 3,000 apples onto green cotton to put onto the tree. So I really hope you enjoy them tonight. And that was thanks to the artist, Rebecca Louise Law, who very kindly organised all of that for us, and to someone called Sam, who donated the apples, but we never found out who he was, from Covent Garden. One of the other things happening tonight, so there's a lot of energy that happens in a Maggie Centre, and there's a lot of energy tonight from the dance duet H2, who are performing at the Rocker Gallery. And they're also very funny, and that's the other thing about Maggie's. There's a lot of laughter at Maggie's around the kitchen table, and that was really important to us, that we had some of that laughter in the walk tonight. All of our centres are very light and airy, and tonight there's some fantastic light installations from BDP, both at the Rocker and at Bart's Hospital, which will be our second centre in London coming in a few years' time. There's also surprise in our centres because they all look so different, and they're there to surprise people and make them want to come inside. And you should look out, for there'll be a talking table at Maggie's London when you get there, by artists Robin Blackledge and Dominic Robinson. We've had so much help along the way with putting together this culture crawl. A huge thank you to Abe Rogers, who's given us so much advice and support with all our cultural content. A massive thanks to RBS, whose very generous sponsorship enabled us to put on so many of the events tonight. And of course our partnership with Open House, without which we couldn't do this at all, because they allow us into the houses and buildings you see along the way. Food is also really important to Maggie's. You'll never come into a centre without seeing a kitchen table which has either got lovely fruit or cakes or biscuits on it. Tonight there'll be breakfast when you get to the Gherkin by Leon. There'll be smoothies from Innocent in their Innocent van. We've got tea from Fortnum and Mason's. And most importantly, there are always brownies at Maggie Centre, so there'll be lots of brownies and cakes when you get there. Finally, creative writing is a really important part of what we do in the centres. We hope you enjoy the readings when you get to the Foreign Office from Josephine Hart's anthology. So we've got some lovely actors who've all given their time for free to read from her anthology. And that's very much thanks to Victoria Gray, who's here tonight, through her charity, Give a Book, which gives books to 3 or 4 different charities for people to read. She has donated copies for all of you of Dickens' Night Walks, which everyone gets when they finish at the Gherkin, and everyone will be signed with your name. So thank you very much, Victoria, for that. Now though, I'd very much like to invite someone very special onto the stage, Dame Harriet Walter, who has come straight here from her rehearsals at the Donmar Theatre, where she is playing a female Brutus in Julius Caesar, which is about to go to America. And her actor husband, Guy Paul, will be reading from Dickens' Night Walks now to give you an idea of what London felt like at night all that time ago, and we don't think it's very much different. Please welcome Harriet and Guy.
The restlessness of a great city and the way in which it tumbles and tosses before it can get to sleep formed one of the first entertainments offered to the contemplation of us houseless people. It lasted about 2 hours. We lost a great deal of companionship when the late public houses turned their lamps out and when the potmen thrust the last brawling drunkards into the street. But stray vehicles and stray people were left us after that. If we were very lucky, a policeman's rattle sprang and a fray turned up. But in general, surprisingly little of this diversion was provided, except in the Haymarket, which is the worst kept part of London, and about Kent Street in the Borough, and along a portion of the line of the Old Kent Road, Otherwise, the peace was seldom violently broken.
But it was always the case that London, as if in imitation of individual citizens belonging to it, had expiring fits and starts of restlessness. After all seemed quiet, if one cab rattled by, half a dozen would surely follow. And houselessness even observed that intoxicated people appeared to be magnetically attracted towards each other, so that we knew when we saw one drunken object staggering against the shutters of a shop, that another drunken object would stagger up before 5 minutes were out to fraternize or fight with it.
By this time, I was setting towards the river, and in a short breathing space I was on Westminster Bridge, regaling my houseless eyes with the external walls of the British Parliament, the perfection of a stupendous institution, I know, and the admiration of all surrounding nations and succeeding ages, I do not doubt, but perhaps a little the better now and then for being pricked up to its work. Turning off into the old palace yard, the courts of law kept me company for a quarter of an hour, hinting in low whispers what numbers of people they were keeping awake, and how intensely wretched and horrible they were rendering the small hours to unfortunate suitors. Covent Garden Market, when it was market morning, was wonderful company. The great wagons of cabbages with growers' men and boys lying asleep under them, and with sharp dogs from market garden neighbourhoods looking after the whole, were as good as a party. But one of the worst night sights I know in London is to be found in the children who prowl about this place, who sleep in the baskets, fight for the offal, dart at any object they think they can lay their thieving hands on, dive under the carts and barrows, dodge the constables, and are perpetually making a blunt pattering on the pavement of the piazza with the rain of their naked feet.
There was early coffee to be got about Covent Garden Market, and warm company too, which was better. Into one of these establishments near Bow Street there came one morning, as I sat over my houseless cup, pondering where to go next, a man in a high and long, snuff-coloured coat and shoes, and to the best of my belief, nothing else but a hat, who took out of his hat a large, cold meat pudding. A meat pudding so large that it was a very tight fit, and brought the lining of the hat out with it. Now, this mysterious man was known by his pudding, for on his entering, the waiter brought him a pint of hot tea, a small loaf, and a large knife and fork and plate. Left to himself, he stood the pudding on the bare table, and instead of cutting it, stabbed it overhand with the knife like a mortal enemy. Then took the knife out, wiped it on his sleeve, tore the pudding asunder with his fingers, and ate it all up. Twice only was I in this establishment, and twice I saw him stalk in, as I should say, just out of bed, take out his pudding, stab his pudding, wipe the dagger, and eat his pudding all up. He was a man whose figure promised cadaverousness, but who had an excessively red face, though shaped like a horse's. And on the second occasion of my seeing him, he said huskily to the waiter, "Am I red tonight?" "You are," he uncompromisingly answered. "My mother," said the spectre, "was a red-faced woman that liked drink, and I looked at her hard when she laid in her coffin, and I took the complexion." Somehow, the pudding seemed an unwholesome pudding after that, and I put myself in its way no more.
Now, too, the conscious gas began to grow pale with the knowledge that daylight was coming, and straggling workpeople were already in the streets. And as waking life had become extinguished with the last pieman's sparks, so it began to be rekindled with the fires of the first street corner breakfast sellers. And so by faster and faster degrees, until the last degrees were very fast, the day came, and I was tired and could sleep. And it is not, as I used to think, going home at such times, the least wonderful thing in London, that in the real desert region of the night, the houseless wanderer is alone there. I knew well enough where to find vice and misfortune of all kinds if I had chosen, but they were put out of sight, and my houselessness had many miles upon miles of streets in which it could and did have its own solitary way.